Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu pakhairagale ni hao chunashume washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Halishuma chatore. Ahlan wasalan marhaba. Buna. Mucho gracias. Swabia. Bhalli kare aaya. Hosh kaldin. Naya wasayo. Khuya mora. Chivato. Chihal yud. Kalimera. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and it's a lovely Tuesday morning over here in Islamabad. And we hope and pray that everybody out there is ready to kickstart their day with us. But first things first, hello Hajra, Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me. Jazakallah khair. So weather is really fine, and I think there are a lot of things that are very confusing in life, and weather is one of them, because a few days it's so hot that you feel okay, you now need to turn on the ACs. And the next day, you will find that the weather has turned so pleasant. And especially, I remember there was this one particular day where there was double rainbow phenomena coming up. It was such a beautiful sight to behold, because I think I saw rainbow after quite some time. And Islamabad has almost turned into Murray, right? You really feel really cold, especially after the fan you have turned on. So you need to have some, kambal or quilt or something.
Exactly. And, so Hajar, because, over the weekend I was in Narowal, and, as soon as I touched down in Islamabad, I could feel the breeze. I'm going to move on to Narowal as well, but very quickly, because, I believe that the expectation now is that the weather stays the same, because unfortunately, in between somewhere where we experienced 41 degrees and Lahore experienced 50 degrees centigrade as well, we were like, okay, if it's going to be this hot, we do not certainly want to be outside, because everybody was melting, unfortunately. But eventually, just yesterday, the air conditioners were switched off. Everybody was having a great time. The windows were back open, and slower speed fan would actually do with whatever comfort you certainly needed. But while we speak of it, obviously everybody's like, from February onwards, everybody was like that, okay, it's going to be summers now, there's climate change and whatnot. But if that's the impact of climate change, what we are experiencing today, I think we would certainly want to stay with it as well. But having said so, ladies and gentlemen, there was a news which was out there just yesterday that there's going to be a lot of windy weather conditions around Pakistan as well, not just in Islamabad and Rawalpindi, may it be Multan, may it be Lahore, may it be elsewhere. So please make sure that if you're traveling outside, do not park your car under the trees. And it's because of the fact that, God forbid, the trees can actually fall down. Well, these are the shots which you can see on your television screens from Narowal, the National Sports City Narowal. I was there, Alhamdulillah. I had the honor to cover it. And it is about the vision of the current government. Imagine that, I would certainly want to pay credit, because we always speak that, we really need to kind of give credit to people who have done quite a lot for the good of their own citizens as well. So when we speak of Narowal, ladies and gentlemen, the credit goes to the Minister for Planning and Development and Strategic Innovations, Mr. Hassan Iqbal, because this was the inaugural game, Hajra, at the Narowal Sports City. To be very honest, Sair Ali Bagga was there too as well. It was a fun moment. And to see that there were so many people gathered to witness the inaugural match, which was in between PCB 11 and Lahore Qalandars. So PCB 11 was, obviously, the captain was Kamran Akmal, won the toss, scored 119. And then Lahore Qalandars, I think their player development program has done so well. Fakhar Zaman and Tahir Beg actually kind of took the match away just with the opening pair stand as well, and that too in 7.4 overs. But while we speak of it, imagine that the love the people of Narowal showed for cricket, and not just that. So this entire facility, the National Sports City Narowal, can actually conduct 27 different sports games at one time. So they have 14 different sorts of, for example, hockey grounds, then we speak of it, then football grounds, swimming, then table tennis. So any sport which you can think of, the matches can actually take place over here. And for people to have more avenues, I mean, imagine that the people of Narowal can finally go to a place where they can play. They have this international facility, and they can exhibit their talent. And the way people, Hajar, loved everybody over there, because imagine in Narowal, it's Kamran Akmal playing, it's Fakhar Zaman playing. There was Usman Qadir, there was Khushdil Shah. So people were so excited that at one point of time, the fans actually came into the ground to hug their favorite players as well. So it was wonderful to witness. So obviously the credit goes to Mr. Hassan Iqbal and the current leadership. Obviously, and the current leadership as well, Mia Muhammad Shabazz Sharif Saaf, and then PCB kind of contributed. Then PTV Sports actually contributed quite a lot.
Yes.
We were all there.
Yes.
So it was fantastic to see. And I think that international matches from here onwards shouldn't really be taking place in Karachi because the audience doesn't show up. I think it should actually take place in Multan, Narowal, Peshawar, Lahore and elsewhere as well. But thank you so much, Mr. Ahsan Iqbal, for giving us such a facility for the citizens of Narowal.
Yes, that's very true, and obviously our youth needs more avenue for channeling out their productivity and creativity, right? So moving on to our top stories, which is about the story that has been trending for quite some time, and it is about Erdogan's victory in Turkey. Mashallah, and lots of congratulations, and Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif also congratulated President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on his re-election and expressed his best wishes. These views Prime Minister expressed during a phone call to the President. Shahbaz Sharif added that he believed that under the Erdogan's wise and visionary leadership, Turkey will continue its journey on the path of development and prosperity at the same pace. And just imagine, Shahzad, that he's already ruled for 20 years, and next 5 years he is also going to rule. So just imagine the work he delivered, and I have seen it myself in Istanbul, and I went there, I think back in March, so I was talking to people there, and they were all so full of praise and love for Erdogan, and especially the matter of the fact is that they were able to practice their religion freely in their Turkey. That is what they supported and loved about the Erdogan the most, because he reclaimed back his Ottoman past, his roots, and that is very much important that we stay connected back to our tradition.
And Hajar, in addition to that, obviously, you know, because when I landed in Istanbul, you know, so the airplane actually took 45 minutes while it was taxiing, and, you know, while we kind of had to get off the plane as well. And when I landed at the airport, I even witnessed that this change was actually brought in by Erdogan himself. It was his vision.
There's a new airport in the place.
Exactly. And it was because of his vision, and not just that, you know, so there was a time when people would go to Dubai, you know, get a connecting flight and whatnot. Now people prefer going to Istanbul. So may it be Louis Vuitton stores, or maybe Prada stores, or maybe any store, you know, it's right over there. And I believe that the credit certainly goes to the vision of the President Erdogan as well. So, you know, to the entire team, congratulations on behalf of PTV as well. And Mr. Erdogan, His Excellency is actually such a leader that people actually follow him out of love as well.
That's you know, and I think he has took over the reins of Muslim Ummah, because I was watching the clips where Turks were celebrating in Australia, in UK, and all of these Western countries, and I mean on the triumph of their beloved leader.
And even we started with Mashallah.
Yes. So moving on, China will send its first civilian astronauts into space as a part of the 3-member crew mission to the Tiangong space station today. Until now, all Chinese astronauts sent into space have been part of the People's Liberation Army. It is the 5th manned mission to Chinese space outpost since 2021. The agency said it will be mainly responsible for the on-orbit operation of the space science experimental payloads. Shahzad, do you know that when I was growing up, I was so much fascinated by these cosmos, by this universe, that I really wanted to be an astronaut in the first place, because the universe, all of these planets, solar system, that fascinated me so much, because there's so much out there to explore, and which our mental faculties are still unable to grasp the gravity of the entire universe which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
But I'm not
created.
sure, you know, Haja, whether as a civilian I would certainly want to travel as an astronaut and go somewhere, because imagine that, you know, when we speak about flights, you know, domestic and international, there are more than 120,000 flights taking place every single day. So you know that it's safe. But when we talk about space travel, I'm not certainly sure. God forbid if I don't come back, what will happen to my kids?
I mean, how can you be sure about
See, it's very risky, you know, so I do not certainly want to take that risk.
There, right?
I mean, if, you know, space travel was so common that imagine that, you know, 150,000 flights were taking place every single day, I'll be like, okay, yaar, chalo, main bhi chale chalta hu. But ladies and gentlemen, there's another good news which we would want to share over here, and that is that Pakistan beat Japan 3-2 in the last Pool A match and qualified for the semi-final of Junior Hockey Asia Cup 2023 at Salalah, Oman. Kompay Yasuda scored the opening goal for Japan in the 2nd minute. Arbaz Ahmed equalized for Pakistan in the 23rd minute. With the win, Pakistan finished 2nd in Pool A with 10 points after 4 matches. India also got 10 points, but they finished at the top on goal difference. Pakistan will face the winner of Pool B, while India meet runner-up of Pool B in semi-finals. Wow. So hockey is picking up back again. There was a time. Obviously, hockey happens to be the national sport of Pakistan. Sometimes I do wonder why, but we have been really good at hockey, unfortunately. In the past few years, we certainly weren't able to perform the way we should have, but now, alhamdulillah, I think there's hope. So, ladies and gentlemen, all the best to the team Pakistan.
Right. So wonderful. And now moving on to our topic, which is about the professional and the personal development of the youth.
Very
so
important.
Pakistan, yes, Pakistan has 60% of the population, which we categorize as the youth population. So certainly a lot of people categorize this category as the demographic gift. But if their energy are not properly channelized, it can be turned into a ticking bomb, right?
True.
So how do we make sure that our youth are well guided, and that too in an era where there's so much information overload? We're very glad that we have been joined by one of our favorite guests on the show. She happens to be Miss Afsha Tehseen Bajwa. She happens to be former chairperson of the NCRC. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you very much for inviting me, and it was so energizing to listen to you in the morning.
Thank you so much.
And
thank
you
so
give
much.
energy, you know, to the people around you and to the whole of Pakistan.
Wonderful.
And entire globe where people are listening to you.
And it's always wonderful to have you over here because number one, you know, you're rich with your vocabulary, and then, you know, you resonate with the same energy as well. But very quickly, ma'am, what I would certainly want to ask you is that there is a reason why we have picked up on this topic where we are discussing personal and professional development, and that too precisely we're talking about youngsters. You know, unfortunately on the 9th of May 2023, what the entire Pakistan witnessed is something which actually kind of compels us to speak about that people really need to be educated. But when we talk about education, we certainly need a holistic education model, and it's because of the fact that we certainly, you know, if God forbid I am to talk about the 9th of May and the incidents which actually took place, it certainly shows that there is a lack of ethos, there's a lack of values, there's a lack of civic sense in our education system. How do you think we instill that? Imagine that, you know, there were people taking out frozen fruits from somebody else's house. Imagine people stealing birds. Imagine people putting buildings on fire. And this was the youth of Pakistan, and that's not what we expected. They've become polarized, number one. And number two, they are uneducated to the core.
Thank you very much, Shehzad. I think one of the most important topics that should be for government of Pakistan and for us all as parents and as society. As Hajra very rightly mentioned, that almost 60% of this population of Pakistan consists of youth, and definitely including children. And after Afghanistan, entire South Asia is the youngest country. So the youth bulge, which can, you know, play a very positive role in society, and if we are not harnessing their potential, tabbing them, and you know, passing them through proper development process, that can be a double-edged sword for us. And the entire world unfortunately had witnessed what happened on 9th of May, and we used to be very proud to say that no matter what disaster comes in Pakistan, your 2005 earthquake or 2010 floods, or in Pakistan whatever happened, normally nation always, you know, came forward and they supported. But this was something which was an eye-opener, which was gave us a picture what is going to happen in future, and what were the causes which led us to such a disaster and actions, particularly on the path of youth. And that's why it's been now years, even talking about myself and lots of people like us and lots of intellectuals and, you know, other think tanks have been talking about. Then in Pakistan, as compared to other countries around, neighboring countries or developed nations or other such you know, countries where you see that there is lots of investment on youth and children. In Pakistan, there is one phenomena which I have been, you know, now it has become a rhetoric from my side, that early childhood development. That is a very, very critical word, because it is a medical theory which tells you that if you really want to instill positive values, character building, strong personality, sense of right and wrong, civic sense, self-protection, you know, ownership, having a goal in life, all this you can do it in the early years of a child. So here comes the role of definitely initially the parents, and then definitely schools, and then the state and society. But unfortunately, this early childhood development story is just known to few, maybe such organizations who are working on it, maybe to the doctors who always have been telling people who are, you know, engaged into social work. But entirely as a national policy, it is not very much one of the stepping stones. And other than that, you know, there is one particular factor on which definitely lots of people have now started raising voice, which is parenting. Positive parenting is still an ignored area in Pakistan. Normally, there is this trend here, people, whether they are poor or whether they are middle class or normally affluent people, what they believe is that parenting is all about sending your child to school, I mean education, grading. then giving him good clothes, then giving him good food, and maybe sending him here and there for entertainment. So this is not parenting. Parenting is upbringing of a child as a human being with a positive personality and outlook and a positive mindset.
Thank you.
So that child when grows up and contributes in society,
yes.
that should be a positive contribution.
Yes.
So here we have to now focus on the policies at the national level by the concerned duty bearers, which is the government, of course, that how to now start working on these things.
True.
So now normally if you look at in Pakistan, various good initiatives have been taken by government of Pakistan in the past, now maybe in future also, but there has been a trend of working in silos. I mean, there is a national education policy, fine. Then there is a national youth policy, fine. Then there was a national plan of action for children, fine. But where is the integration?
True.
Because normally what you have to see is all these policies should converge and should just reflect on one child. So how they can complement all these approaches, and where it should not be only maybe one single intervention type of a approach, but the overall focus should be how through these policies we engage our youth, we just bring them into rigorous process, where after engaging in all that process they contribute not only financially, but in terms of jobs, academically, and then also socially and politically as well. And one of the greater factors, if you just review all the curriculum of Pakistan, you will see that this civic sense,
yes,
all these protection,
lagging.
these
Yes.
actions, you will have a random survey and you will come to know zero civic sense.
Yes, that's
No,
I've never read a chapter on
no
civic sense or personal development.
Yeah, zero civic sense, no self-awareness. And no accountability or responsibility type of behavior.
Yes.
That my actions, I am responsible for my actions, and I have to think of us, not me. And that is a very much, I mean, sorry, yes, Shehzad.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of synergy, right?
Yeah.
So we really need to work, we need to bridge these gaps. But I'm very sorry that I'm going to put you under this spot, and that is that, so since you have served the National Commission of the Rights of Child, you're the former chairperson as well. You've spoken about how, there are different policies for youngsters, different policies for children. So don't you think that it would have been under your forte to kind of bridge this gap, because you happen to be the chairman for National Commission of the Rights of Child?
Yeah, definitely. I think since this commission, was established after 30 years, and I was given
and you
the
were
task.
the flag bearer of it.
I am the flag.
Alhamdulillah.
I was the flag
The
bearer.
first one?
Definitely, the founder chairperson. It's an honor, and I really value it. Alhamdulillah. And definitely, since a new commission which was going to be into a functional body, and I converted a piece of paper into an operational commission. So initially, my entire focus was establishment of the entire secretariat, rules, regulations, government governance plans, position, and establishment of it. And alongside, we definitely had taken lots of initiatives and protection, and the foremost was awareness raising.
True.
And my first campaign was on parenting and other aspects of the child rights. And definitely all the publications we produced, even the calendar we had at that time
there were
published.
those public service messages as well, wonderful
Yes,
ones. We
it
saw
was
them
very
on TV.
much focused on the actual issues of like parenting.
True.
What is our role, what do we need to do. So the journey had started. Definitely it was like maybe the viewership was in millions when we when I had my tenure ended, and I had right away extended my partnership with Pamela, because through that I believe that media
Yes.
and the social media and the all these marketing techniques should be employed to ensure our outreach to the entire nation, because infotainment, optics, seeing is believing, role modeling, these are the major tools which now government of Pakistan should employ.
But you alluded to something very important, Ms. Safshin, and which is about the positive mindset and obviously engaging the role of media in all of this equation. But how do you think, especially in the age of social media, how can we make sure that our youth are protected? Because social media is a competing ideologies, there's so many ideologies they're competing, and obviously I generally believe that social media is very mediocre media, because mostly you would find is that people are abusing each other, they are putting ill words on each other, there's no sense of accountability, anyone can type anything on the social media, so the responsibility part of the social media is really weak.
And on
right?
top of it, people are wasting a lot of time rather than learning learning something, they're wasting a lot of time.
Sure, go
You
ahead.
know, in the last maybe 15 days of my tenure, we had launched a very important policy brief to be followed by the government, which was on cyber, you know, security and, you know, all these related aspects of social media. And the director FIA was invited to inaugurate it.
Wonderful.
And he had mentioned that it's a gift to the government of Pakistan. So very rightly mentioned that social media now it's easily accessible by all,
Yes.
having different levels of education, different levels of awareness, sensitization, no vigilance by parents, no checks and balances. So instead of contributing a positive role, it is now, you know, rather being
Subverting
used
it,
very having very negative effects. And unfortunately this phenomena had started entirely from actual to virtual in COVID-19.
Yes.
But now that entire world is engaged, and in the coming future it's going to be more and more. If you know, all these youth, if you do a survey, they don't watch TVs and citing, all they watch is, you know, YouTubes and social media and such channels. So definitely, like other countries were very mindful of such harms and hazards of social media. So they had developed SOPs and they very consciously worked on it. So now is the time for Pakistan to see if these youth bulge, of course these 60%, if they are directly engaged day and night without having any, you know, this I mean sensitization, that entire 7, 8, 10 hours you are just spending on social media, and what they are watching and what they are being, maybe fifth generation hybrid generation warfare is definitely, it is actually there, believe you me. How these are being used to change their mindset, to, you know, instill in them an element of harm, maybe a reaction, maybe violence, maybe tit for tat. And the more you are there and more you are prominent and following such things, and the more you are maybe thinking yourself a macho man experience. So this is something which we have to be maybe now review what to do and how to do.
Which is why, you know, I think in addition to this, because this is where we started our conversation, you know, from what happened on the 9th of May. Obviously it was a sad incident, but I think that the major part of polarization has taken place on all of these social media platforms, and that's where either people are famous, either people are not famous, and, you know, there are people who actually have massive following, and whatever they tweet, whatever they post on Instagram and social media platforms, people start to learn from that, and then they kind of go for that as well. So I think that it's not just the sole responsibility of the teachers at the same time. I think it's for parents to understand what positive parenting is. Just like how Ms. Afsha Tahsin Bajwa Sahiba has mentioned about it, then, you know, early childhood development, we really need to focus on our energies on that, because that's the future generation. But thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you. Rather, you know, while when you were the chairperson of the NCRC as well, or when you certainly hold that portfolio, but certainly speaking about children and how they really need to come forward and how they need to have this positive mindset. This was a lovely conversation, and we value your participation every single time as well. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have to head out towards a short break. But once you guys will come back, you know, today it's going to be another different topic, and we're discussing it for the very first time. How can you protect yourself from these diseases? You know, so every time we might get flu, you know, I cannot come to work, or probably she cannot come to work, even though that even if we have flu, we make sure that we do not find an excuse to not show up at work. But how do we do that, ladies and gentlemen? We'll be talking about it right after a short break, and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, my wonderful colleague here, Shehzad, alluded to the fact that we had to take care of ourselves, right? And when we talk about holistic wellness, what does it mean, and what does it had an impact on the physical health? And Shehzad, so Pakistan, and especially there's this headquarter of Comstex just across our office in Pakistan, and we've seen that Comstex have successfully conducted 400 free eye cataract surgeries in Chad, and we have also a package made on this, and after we come back from this package, we are going to have a wholesome discussion on how to protect ourselves from all of these diseases, because prevention is always better than cure, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
better than spending.
let's go to the package.
In the next 3 days, the team doctor A team of Pakistani doctors through Comstech have performed another 220 free cataract surgeries on the third day of their campaign in Chad. The team will perform 180 more free operations in the next 3 days. The team of Pakistani doctors will also train local doctors in the latest cataract surgery techniques, conducting post-operative examinations of patients, and launching an awareness campaign targeting youth to prevent avoidable blindness.
We are here to conduct 400 cataract surgeries in the prevention of blindness program. We are very happy to be here so that we can help our African friends.
I am very happy to see the doctor about Pakistan Islamic to come here for help then.
Furthermore, Comstech, with the assistance of Islamic Development Bank, has planned to provide a 2-year specialized postgraduate training program to 16 African eye specialists at local institutes. This eye camp is a testament to the commitment of Comstech and Islamic Development Bank to improve the health and well-being of the people in the Africa's least developed countries of the OIC.
Right, well, that was a wonderful milestone Pakistan has achieved, and congratulations to Comstech and all the doctors who were there in Africa helping our friends as well. And I certainly believe that, you know, when we are to kind of speak about Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, my parents still tell me that there was a time that we used to give loan to other countries. And meanwhile, when we cannot do that, we are actually giving eyesight to other countries as well.
Wonderful.
And I believe that's wonderful. But now, very quickly coming down to what we discussed, you know, the holistic idea of well-being, the airborne diseases, the waterborne diseases, flu, COVID, and so much going around people. How do we protect ourselves? You know, how do we make sure that we're not going to fall ill? How do you think that we're going to be all healthy, making sure that we're working out, eating healthy as well? Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky to talk about this wonderful topic today, that too with a gentleman who happens to be the Chief Executive Officer of Global Health Strategies and Implementers, Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar Sahab. Hello sir, Assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Wa alaikum salam and very good morning to both of you.
Sir, the best part is that ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਰਾਣੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. So it's wonderful to have you over here. But sir, very quickly, so many diseases, illnesses, you know, malaria, so then there's COVID, then there's monkeypox, then there's flu, then there's new amoeba you were telling us about as well. How do we protect ourselves, sir? We get scared a little.
Yes, and when I became a doctor, you know, I thought at that time that prevention is like a concept of old. Now we have antibiotics available and we can treat all the medicines with all the medicines we have. But very quickly we realized that those medicines are not working very effectively. Antibiotic resistance is coming up and treatment is expensive for most of people. So the other aspect is what I am practicing now, which is the public health. And public health mantra is what you just said, prevention is better than cure. So how to prevent diseases and stay healthy. So that's my focus.
And it does get difficult at times, you know. So imagine that if you do not shake hands with people, if you do not hug them, most of the times we're going to protect ourselves from flu. And this is something which we learned in COVID, because, you know, when we were certainly not meeting anybody and we were not socializing, we never got flu in those 2 years of COVID as well. So how do you think that it's just human beings being social beings actually contributes quite a lot towards us getting ill?
No, actually we could still be a social being and still stay protected. Just like let's say about the shaking of the hands. In our own religion, 5 times if you are praying, you have to wash your hands 5 times a day. And so basically you are cleaning your hands. So number one, that's that you know, any infection which is passed on the touch could be prevented if you are follow you know, the wudu thing. So number one. Number two is how we meet other is important. You can still hug people, but hug in open spaces. Do not hug people in closed spaces where the ventilation is not good. Open your window.
Thank God you said it. Thank God you said it. I took it very different as well. Closed places and open places when we spoke about hugging. But yeah, please.
Yes. So open your windows. That's what I'm saying is that's what we learned in COVID-19. And you know, recently I gave a lecture to one of the US universities in which I actually explained that why developing countries did better in COVID-19 control as compared to say US and the other developed countries. And you know, there are a couple of reasons for that. And one of the reason is that 95% of official work which happens in developing countries like Pakistan happens in open spaces. Like we do not have central air conditioned building, and that's the 5%. So that's why even though a person was COVID infected, it was less chances of us getting infected.
But we are living in a lot of cramped spaces, no, as compared to the Western world. So don't you think that we can't practice social distancing in that way?
So the worst scenario is your juggi, like you know,
or slums,
or slums. But they don't have even doors.
Yes, of course.
So the air is coming and going and making any infection, airborne infection, you know, the number of viruses much fewer than if you are in a closed surface, in a closed room. So even though if you have a bigger room, but you don't have a good ventilation, it's circulated air, you are at a highest height of danger there as compared to you know, going to a slums and living.
So I'm going to stop you at number 2. You know, so number 2, first obviously wash your hands. Number 2 was ventilation. So all our lives we have been thinking that air conditioner is a good source of ventilation because it's going to suck in the air and it's going to bring in fresh air. Number 1. Number 2, you would certainly want to have you know, centrally heated houses over here, because in winters it certainly gets really difficult for people to kind of get out of bed as well, and that's safe because all they do is that they put in radiators in different rooms as well, and it has nothing to do with air, but obviously it's the air around it which is going to get warm. So don't you think that, you know, this theory of ours that air conditioners are actually supposed to bring in fresher air and, you know, take out the older air?
So actually these are 2 points. One is the way we are cooling our houses now, the air conditions. So air condition, the earlier versions, if you remember those window versions,
powerful ones.
Yes, they used to have one switch which says outdoor air
and indoor
circulated air.
True.
We don't see this in the newer versions, but in the older versions there was. So what is happening in West is, because they have much bigger problem, all of their buildings, official, residential, you know, everywhere there is a central air conditioning.
True.
So what they are doing is now recommending 2 things. One, intake of fresh air should be increased in those systems. So like 10 or 20% of fresh air should be circulated. Similarly, you know, the very strong type of filters which are very good to filter out viruses should be installed. So they are coming up with these 2 additions to it. But on the heating side, what the West has learned, like Germany has done a research, because their schools were all closed, it's very cold there. And what they realized, that if you open your windows between classes for 10 minutes, the cognitive level of the students increased many levels.
Yes, so you get fresh.
Not only fresh, you get fresh oxygen, which is good for your brain.
So basically, you're more attentive.
So you become more attentive. You learn much more easily. So what they are now, you know, trying is, you know, we can't close the windows all the time, but maybe in between the classes we can open them for 10 minutes to have recirculate the air.
Wonderful. So first 2 points. Now let's move on to the third or fourth. Please go ahead. Because first you said washing hands. Number 2, you said ventilation. Are there any more points to it?
Yes. And you said so. We are talking about airborne infections. COVID-19 was airborne, flu is airborne, and there are many more dangerous pandemic prone diseases are airborne. So that's our biggest threat. But there are other diseases also which are very serious, which are droplet or touch infections.
Somebody didn't have the right, you know, etiquettes of sneezing and, you know,
exactly. So in the COVID-19, if you remember, in the beginning, the first few months, we were thinking it is droplet infection. So all the precautions of washing your hands, you know, sneezing and covering your nose while sneezing, they came from that concept.
True.
So that should, you know, you need to still follow those. And if you were saying that if you will have flu, you still try to come to the office, my suggestion would be don't come to the office if you have flu.
If you don't come.
because now actually, you know, the businesses are being encouraged to excuse their employees, you know, if they have flu or any airborne infection, because the infection can come to the office and then spread to more people.
So the only thing I think that people need to understand is that, God forbid, if they have flu, you know, all they need to do is just wear a mask and not shake hands with anybody. That's it. You know, do not make contact with anyone. And you're going to keep them safe as well.
Yeah, that's a difficult concept to instill into a lot of people, especially here in Pakistan. Exactly, because this concept of closeness and intimation that comes with the
in COVID-19, I actually, you know, practiced this. I used to, wherever my office was, you know, I said, you know, there are guards at every floor. and I thought it does not look nice that we just walk by. So I started shaking hand with every one of them. And then the COVID came.
Yes.
And the guards were, used to raising hand. And I said, now I'm not going to shake hand. And he really felt bad about it.
Yes.
And similarly, the wearing mask, and we went to someone's house, and the person got offended. He says, well, do you think I will pass on infection to you? So these are things which people are learning.
Need to understand.
And it's difficult to disentangle our cultural norms with the medical emergencies that are in place, but generally say there's an inflating trend of rising diseases across the world, right? In Pakistan, you will see obesity is on the rise, so is diabetes and other diseases.
Cholesterol.
So, yes, and do you think that there's something wrong with us, the way we are leading our lives? That's why we are seeing this, witnessing this increasing trend of the diseases, and what sort of changes would you like to suggest in our lifestyles?
Because we do have an increasing trend of, Bud Kadai restaurants opening up everywhere in the country with olive oil and makhan and desi ghee.
Yes.
So do you think we are on the right path?
No, I think we are on the wrong path.
Yes.
There is no question about this. So, when I went to United States to study public health, and that was in 90s, with my American class fellows, we used to engage in all those discussions. And I used to tell them your eating habits are very unhealthy.
Okay.
Because until that time, 90s, the salad we had was just onions, tomatoes, cucumbers. That was our salad.
No sauces, no nothing.
No sauces, no nothing. Okay. The snacks we had were the fruit chaat, which was basically fruit salad with tamarind, with yogurt, very healthy.
Even
everything.
chana chaat was good.
Chana chaat was good also. Yeah, but the third common staple at all colleges was this corn. The sand buried corn.
Challi.
So these were all healthy snacks.
Yes.
When I went to States, all salads were cream salads, very unhealthy.
Yes.
They were eating pizzas. At that time, we had started seeing pizzas, but they were not very common. Burgers were there already, but the most popular burgers were what we call Shami burger, which is basically, and the fries were not a big thing at that time. So all these things unhealthy. I came back after a few years, and I was like disappointed to see that the cream salads were everywhere, including someone who had a small cart, and he's selling all type of cream salads in our street corners.
Yes.
So the whole concept of the bad food started here also. But we have double problem. The Western has conquered pretty much all the infectious diseases. So, in US, like 100 years ago, their biggest problems were infectious diseases, like typhoid was a major problem, malaria was a major problem in United States, and all those kind of, the diseases, tuberculosis was a major problem. Our problem is that we have not been successful in controlling infectious diseases, but with our change of lifestyle, now we have chronic diseases, which you have said we are, diabetes, obesity, high cholesterol, and heart diseases. And heart diseases, I think we as a nation, one of my paper was on this, the South Asians, we are susceptible to high level of heart diseases if our diet changes, and which has changed.
But sir, at the same time.
This is their trend, Shehzad, especially in the West, that you would see that there's a lot of genetically modified food there, right? So you will, in America, you will find strawberries all the season 24/7, right? And it's such a thick strawberry with so much red color in it that you will clearly find it that this is all chemical induced strawberry. It's not a very organic growth out there. And that you will see that sort of diffusion is also into their lifestyles, right? But in Pakistan, I mean, obviously we do have our own sorts of, fraudulent practices here when it comes to growing all of these organic products, but still we are clutching towards this very primitive methods of farming and agricultural practices. So how harmful are the genetically modified food practices? And obviously we are living in a global village, so these practices will certainly diffuse in Pakistan in coming years.
Or do you think if it's really primitive, because there's a lot of research going into it as well, and that research really needs to come out for people, but when we speak about, these hybrid fruits which are out there, so China will have, a pear which is as big as this. Pakistan will have a pear which is as big as this. So you start to question whether what's happening, what are they giving the soil and what are we actually eating? And so in addition to that, because we have spoken about cholesterol and heart diseases, cardiovascular issues, how do you think that, all of these dietary habits and the way you live your life can actually contribute towards anxiety, depression, higher blood pressure? Please go ahead.
Actually, heart diseases have direct link with the depression.
True.
And some infectious diseases also have a direct link with depression. COVID-19 actually, now it's proven, is directly linked with depression. So that's very correct. But coming back to your answer, and when I moved back from States, some of my American colleagues were visiting Islamabad, and I just told them, I said, this is carrot seasons and let's have carrot juice. And they started laughing. And I couldn't figure it out that what I have said wrongly. Later I realized that in America, there is no season. And the carrots are always there. And so they were laughing, what is this guy saying, telling us this is a carrot season. Genetic food, modified food is a big controversy in West also. Some people think it's unhealthy, and some people argue that we are doing the practice of genetically modifying things for millions of years, not millions, like thousands of years, when the agriculture started. Because we selectively breed sometimes, we ensure, and we were doing it primitively, and now the new generation is doing differently. I think the biggest danger of genetically modified food is what the scientists are worried that it makes there will be fewer species of, let's say, wheat around the world, because they have. So number one, so if something goes wrong with one species of wheat, the whole world's wheat production will be at loss. Second, genetically modified stuff normally does not have seeds. So basically you have to go to the the seller every year to get the seeds. The old method of farming was that you grow your crop and you save some for the next year's growth. So there are, but the benefits are you can get, the production is much higher as compared to the
different taste. And sir, in addition to that, you're very right. So imagine that, when bird flu came in, so people certainly all of a sudden, that
chicken became very cheap
that we used to get from there. It actually, the price went down even, but people stopped eating it, so people moved on to desi chicken rather. So imagine there was at least an option for people, because back in those days when we were growing up, so our grandparents, they would always love mutton. And now eventually when we were growing up, we would always love chicken, and then unfortunately it was a tough time for us because there was no chicken in the house. We were like, okay, what are we going to eat? So that's very right as well, and which is why I said that there needs to be a lot of research which we need to bring forward in order for people to understand whether this hybrid farming is good or not, and that the practices which actually it revolve around. But now what I would want to come down to is that you've spoken very wisely, you've actually hit the nail on the head as well. Now what I want to ask you is, how do you think any ordinary person out there can protect him or herself if their immunity is already on the low? And what reasons do you think are there behind lower immunity?
So, and that's a very important thing. Again, when we were becoming doctor or became doctor in the early days, we didn't pay attention to immunity, and we said, here is my medicine, do whatever you want, take my medicine, and that's was. But later, now immunity has a major contribution if you stay healthy or not. And how to improve your immunity. One is your healthy lifestyle, and when I say healthy lifestyle, it means you allocate some time of the day in which you get out of your house in a park or somewhere and do a little walk. 30 minutes walk minimum. But that walk should not be linked with your mobile phone and you are listening to some YouTube video or something. Do not hear any music, do not just go to a park, hear the birds voices,
the wind breeze, people,
exactly, just enjoy and relax.
And
the thing is, there is a medical reason for that. Once you go outside of your routine, and you start a little bit of physical exertion, but your body release some hormones which are called endorphins. Endorphins
happy
are,
hormones.
Yeah. So endorphins are, elevate your mood.
Yes.
Number one, they are better, help you in fighting diseases.
Wonderful.
And the third is they are addictive.
Right.
So if once you start doing a regular exercise at one time,
yes.
After like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, no matter what others are telling you, you will say, I have to do this 30
Yes,
minutes
wonderful.
walk.
Exactly.
So
And
you have to do this.
And that's exactly what we do, when our friends come up and they're like, okay, you have to skip gym. I'm like, okay, I can skip you, but I cannot skip the gym. But thank you so much, Dr. Rana,
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with
My
you
pleasure.
to speak about such a pivotal topic. But very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, we have a birthday wish to make for a little angel princess, who happens to be daughter of one of our amazing producers, teammates as well, whose name is Usman. So it's Hiba Usman's birthday today. So little angel, a very happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. And the best part,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
so Hiba, we would want to wish you best of luck for your life, for the rest
Yes.
of your life, because when you came into this world, your parents were very happy. Please make sure that every single day you are continuing
Yes.
to make your parents happy as well. And it's wonderful for me to see, because Usman happens to be really slim and and thin as well. But Usman, congratulations that your kids are much really healthier, and you can even try that. Whatever they are eating, you can eat that too as well. So happy birthday, Usman! And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Until next time, on behalf of Haja Sati, Shazad Khan, and the entire PT World team. 1, 2, 3. It's a good morning.